thank you to Ichi-san and Tagagi-san. These are two very old friends, and to Ichi, we have worked together for 40 years. Let me also say a special thanks to the Sasakawa Peace Foundation and also the Nippon Foundation, because these two institutions support two activities that are very close to my heart. Thus, Japan has played a very special part of my life for the last 40 years. I think it's important to start with the issue of peace and think about the fact that the world population will grow from 7 billion people today to 10 billion by 2100. So not only will we need to build new capacity for the incremental needs brought on by a planet with 3 billion people, we will need to replace and repair existing infrastructure. Taking all this together, this would suggest that by the year 2100, the entire global economic infrastructure will need to be rebuilt. Also consider that life expectancy will increase for much of the world. Thus, not only will we need to deal with more people, but we will need to deal with longer lives, and therefore need more energy, more schools, more hospitals, more airports, and even more mobile phones. But in any event, this is going to require an enormous economic challenge and many, many jobs. So the job issue I mentioned, because every nation is concerned about employment. But if you think that in the next 80 years we will have to replace the entire global infrastructure, then there's plenty of jobs available. Let me also say that with economic growth, we're going to see an improvement in the environmental situation, just because a growth and progress in economics brings better environment, regardless of the environment. And think, 10 billion people on the planet will be consumers, especially developing countries, as their per capita income rises. And if we continue to pursue free trade, transparency, investment globally, then manufacturing will continue to shift to the least cost venues following a pattern of the past. In the reality of world peace, we have to recognize that a job anywhere is a job for all of us, because it's a job equals stability. Alternatively, if we raise a generation of youth that cannot be employed, then instability will increase. And I believe that much of the tension in the world is due to the unemployment of the youth of our planet. And if we don't solve this problem, we are never going to solve the peace issue. Extraordinarily, think of the progress since the Second World War. Think of the establishment of the new rules of the world economy that were established in 1947, Bretton Woods, the World Bank and IMF, the Marshall Plan that provided the basis for European growth, the concept of a common market in Europe, and the extraordinary growth of the Japanese economy. All of this led to economic expansion. Let's remember that the next revolution of the world economy was in the early 1980s, and it was led by President Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and Yasu Nakasone. In fact, in 1987, they did an extraordinary declaration called the Williamsburg Declaration for Free Trade and Prosperity, 1983. They also subscribed to a policy of deploying nuclear missiles in Europe in the event that the Soviet Union did not come to the arms control table. That was 1983. By 1985, Gorbachev was at the table in Geneva. I was there. I credit not only economic expansion to Reagan and Nakasone and Thatcher, but the end of the Cold War. In fact, I was President Reagan's assistant for all head of state meetings for 3 years, and I actually was the note taker for 3 or 4 Ron Yasu meetings. These meetings focused on complex international issues, including peace, economics, and energy. Reagan spoke to each of these issues in his 1983 address to the Diet, the first American president to address the Diet. Indeed, the Reagan-Nakasone Energy Agreement of '83 was the only tangible agreement that came out of this historic visit to Tokyo. The Reagan Diet address focused on security, economics, energy, and the shared values of the United States and Japan. And in fact, these issues highlight our agenda today. Without energy, we will not have economic expansion, and without economic expansion, we will not have peace. We have the resources and ingenuity to build an affordable energy future, one that supports and does not constrain economic activity. So, energy is the key to development. And it's important to note that every energy per unit of economy is higher in those countries that are developing countries. So in the United States, in the EU, in Japan, we are becoming mature economies, which means our energy GDP ratios are falling. But again, if we are to have global stability, we need economic expansion. Economic expansion will create jobs, but a stable energy price regime is going to be essential for the world economy. Now, America's recent success in striving for energy independence and diversification is good news for Japan. And as I look at the debate in Japan today about energy, I see that it is respectfully very locally oriented. And yet, as we know, energy is not a local issue, it is a global issue. The United States has resources, lots of resources. The United States has Canada to the north, Mexico to the south, and most of Latin America. The United States protects the Middle East. The United States protects the sea lanes. Again, I don't want to be an arrogant American here, but let me say, the basis for energy security globally now rests in the hands of the United States. What would Japan do without the U.S.-American alliance at the moment? What would you do if we were not secure within the IEA or secure as energy partners? I know nuclear is very controversial at this point in time. My son was here during the radioactive release, all right? So I am a parent who had a child here, and I was, all of us who have family, I was concerned. But the nuclear program of Japan has broader implications than just the debate in Japan. And frankly, given the uncertainties of the global environment, as one weighs the future of nuclear power in Japan, the good, the bad, the ugly, one must look at it in relationship to the global political and geographical and demographic trends of tomorrow. That is what I see lacking in the Japanese debate. Since 1988, I've been to Sendai every year. And so when this devastation occurred, I was in tears remembering my experiences in Sendai. I have many fond memories of Tohoku region. And I'm reminded that the American people, and I might add here, the embassy in Japan the American embassy was just remarkable, handling so many officials from the Department of Energy, the NRC, the military. It was quite extraordinary to see the Japanese people, though, respond so admirably to the disaster, and I'm reminded again of something in Reagan's speech. Talking about the spirit of Japan, he said, and I quote, "To all those who lack faith in the human spirit, I have just 3 words of advice. Come to Japan. Come to learn from a culture that instills in its people a strong spirit of cooperation, discipline, and striving for excellence." You remember Reagan and Nakasone called the U.S.-Japan relationship the most important in the world. And it still is. I believe this emotionally, but I also believe it accurately. Both the United States and Japan at the moment feel like they're going down a little bit. But frankly speaking, all the other countries of the world are going down faster. I mean, really, Europe, China. So actually, the relative strength of the United States and Japan is actually going up. And if you think about this planet of 10 billion people and you say, how are we going to develop all those nuclear plants in the world? They will be developed. And if the United States and Japan are not involved, it will be China, it will be France, it will be India, it will be Russia. And can we be assured that indeed those plants will be safe as those that meet the U.S.-Japanese standards? No, not going to be the case. Look at the area of technology in Japan, the tremendous strength of your high-tech industry. That is something you can share with the world in the United States. Look at your automobile industry, that's the top in the world. People are buying Toyota cars all over the world because of the quality. And think about what we can do together for world security, world economy, world energy. It's a great partnership to build on. And we will not only help ourselves, but we will help the world. Very, very important. We have much work ahead, and together we will achieve sustainability, a clean environment, a prosperous economy for our children and our children for generations to come. Thank you very much. In Rokasho, you have a reprocessing plant that can be used to separate the plutonium from the waste and vitrify the waste. We're very interested in that technology in the United States because if you use reprocessing, you actually reduce the amount of waste space that you need. But I would think this would be an excellent area for cooperation between the United States and Japan because no other country has resolved this issue either. And unless we solve the nuclear waste problem, we are not going to have, a future with nuclear power. Let me, full disclosure here, I also sit on one of the Mr. Putin's energy committees in Russia, all right? I don't know why I was invited, of all people. I am aware the Russians actually think shale gas is propaganda because they are absolutely horrified because it's very bad news for Russia, who wants to sell and monopolize markets like Europe or Japan. I think one of the blessings of shale gas is geopolitical, not that the U.S. would be exporting this everywhere, but the fact that there is shale gas makes for a more temperate Russia. It makes for a more cautious Russia, a less arrogant Russia. However, any time one becomes too dependent on one source for your supply, you face a national security problem. This was the problem with Russia in the 83, 84. They wanted to monopolize the European market. Reagan said no. Reagan even, I should probably point you to books about this subject, but actually implanted a cyber bug in the Russian gas system. Go read about it, interestingly. all of a sudden the Russian gas system started to be dysfunctional. These are stories that show energy is a geopolitical issue. It is a national security issue. Probably first and foremost in U.S. national security plans for many, many decades have been energy related. And it's actually the fact that we now have shale gas is a bit of a comfort that we can be energy dependent.